It's finally just me and you again.
Yes, Ben, we've got the studio to ourselves. What could we possibly do?
Well, I'll tell you what we can do. You know how we do our guide episodes that people enjoy? We're going to do a guide to the breakdown.
Well, you've got two breakdown experts here, haven't you?
Well,
I constantly, you play away from them and I go up to them and go, touch, play away, Ben. So I think in our years of rugby, we probably understand what the breakdown is.
You protect me, and then I've seen a lot of breakdowns. I've seen breakdowns from both sides in terms of attacking breakdowns, and then defensively, the nine's role is to often be behind the ruck. So I've seen people go for that ball and be spat out the other side, half the man they went in to go and compete with it.
We should probably start with what is the breakdown?
Yeah, what is a breakdown? When is a breakdown formed?
The ruck, which is law 15, the principle of it is the purpose of ruck is to allow players to compete for a ball which is on the ground. Forming a ruck can take place only in the field of play, which is useful. And a ruck is formed when at least one player from each team are in contact on their feet and over the ball which is on the ground. Players involved in all stages of the ruck must have their heads and shoulders no lower than their hips. Which is an interesting caveat to the law, because that's sometimes loosely policed in the thing.
Did it say, sorry, your shoulders can't be lower than your hips?
Must have their heads and shoulders no lower than their hips.
Right, so explain to me how you jackal them.
We must have really long arms.
Or you like...
Or you've got a real squat position.
Squat position. Like a frog on a lily pad.
Correct.
Like you're just sitting back.
So ultimately we're doing it wrong.
But that's basically...
Yeah.
How people now jackal the ball now. I'm going to compete. I'm going to appeal every single time. Say, no, sir. His head and shoulders are not.
And also...
above his hips.
The rule about one player from each team being on their feet and over the ball, that's obviously an interesting caveat, because we have played games of rugby where, do you remember Italy in 2016 or 2017 tried to pull a fast one with us by making the tackle but not having anyone compete at the breakdown, so there's no one to clear out. So there was a tackle, but then they could stand offside. They weren't offside because there was no offside line, because there was no breakdown. But they couldn't touch the ball, so they could stand a metre away from the ball on our side of the breakdown, between the 9 and the 10, which made getting the ball out quite hard for half a game rugby.
Absolute shambles.
But that got changed after that year to stop teams doing that.
Yeah, exactly. Which is, well, I remember that game very well actually, and it was just made a mockery of it, because essentially Italians went out with the mindset of trying to do damage limitations, and people go, oh, well, they were being smart and doing the rules. No, they weren't. They basically...
Well, they were being smart, but they were being smart not to win the game.
Yeah, to ruin the game.
Not to get beaten by a lot of points.
Yeah, it was an absolute joke. To the point where I think, I remember getting on the bus after, and Eddie basically apologised to us and said, that's not rugby. It's an absolute joke. Your boys have been let down. Everyone that came to watch the game has been let down. Totally unacceptable. He's like, I don't know whether we need to train boys or not. That's basically what he said. Whether we need to do a session.
I don't know if we need to train, but we will.
We will.
But anyway, yes. So in the breakdown has evolved in several aspects. In its core principle, the breakdown is basically when a player is tackled and on the floor, and it's an opportunity for the defensive side to take the ball. And in today's day and age, you have to be on your feet to take the ball. There can't already be a ruck formed in regards to you can't be in contact with another player from the opposition, an attacking player, and you have the ability to lift the ball with your hands. And that's essentially, that's the way defensive. The ruck is basically the defensive way of getting the ball back. That's it boils down to. And obviously, the years we've had several variants of the breakdown. Once upon a time, when we first started playing, the breakdown was pretty much, if you tried to steal it, the entire opposition pack would come along, tuck their arms and shoulder, dive off their feet, hit you, and then trample on you on the way over. Pretty much what it was, wasn't it? It was a fiercely contested part of the game.
It was mayhem.
I wouldn't say there was a great deal of skill involved, a lot of bravery, but it was basically just a shit fight for all accounts on the floor.
It was an absolute shit fight. And as you said, Coley, there wouldn't be too much technique, but just a lot of bravery.
There's been a lot of attempts to as well change the breakdown and to make it, because it's such a hard part of the game for, I think, referees to referee, because there's a lot going on. Obviously, you've got the man on the floor, and I think you're supposed to release the ball as soon as you hit the floor. You can have one movement to place the ball back or forward to score a try, but you can have one movement to place the ball. You then basically have a man from the attacking side will go over that ball to create a breakdown, and a defender can, there's a tackler. Obviously, there's normally 4 people involved in the breakdown, isn't there? At least 4 people, which is the ball carrier, the tackler, an attacking rucker, and a defending jackler, we'll call them, person to steal the ball. And sometimes there's more attacking players and so on and so forth. So there's a lot going on. Defensively, attackingly, the ball carrier has to place the ball back. The tackler then has to get out of the way. He's not allowed to just lie in the tackle and slow the ball down. You have a man over the ball who wants to steal it, but he has to steal it before he's in contact with the opposition, because as soon as you're in contact with the opposition, there's a ruck. So for the referees, there's a lot to look at and go on, and there's a lot of dark arts and stuff involved. So there's been a lot of attempts over the years, isn't there, to clear the breakdown area up. I think recently, well, I'll say probably 5 or 6 years ago, they tried to make it clear it in regards to who couldn't conceal the ball. In the past couple of years, there's been a lot of, it's been mainly done on safety grounds, hasn't it?
Yeah, they have done a lot of safety stuff around the breakdown. But I tell you what, like, just when you think like the breakdown's getting cleaner and better, it's like I'm already seeing a trend now of teams counter-rucking so much. So like they won't necessarily jackal now, but what they'll do is push that attacker cleaner back over the breakdown, and then 3 will sort of join him and push over the ball. So I think you're going to see a lot more of that now in the game. So although the jackal's still a threat, actually I think people trying to actually put more defensive numbers into a breakdown to push the attacking team with the ball off it.
Or just have 2, because again, the attacking breakdown, if you look at like 10 years ago, teams would send 3, 4, 5 blokes in, whereas now teams are a lot more trying to send 2 blokes at a breakdown, 1 person at a breakdown. Like, you look at the speed of ball, because everyone's trying to get a quick ball. You're trying to lose as little, be as efficient as possible, and lose as little numbers of that breakdown as possible. So in attack, you want to lose the ball carrier, and in the ideal world, say 2 of your attacking players, so you've got 3 in total, which means if you've only got 2 blokes on their feet over the ball, defensively, if you can reload and, as you say, blast that breakdown, and you can put those 2 attackers on their backsides or back to the 9, you can slow the ball down that way, and it's obviously less risky in the eyes of the referee than trying to jackal the ball.
For so many people that maybe look at the breakdown and just think it's just a way of just kind of, I don't know, quick compete and then get the ball, it has such a bearing on all the other parts of the game, because so we've talked in depth about how teams have certain patterns, and a lot of teams run this arrowhead with a pod of 3 forwards and a 10 out the back of that. Now, if they carry that middle guy carries it, and the 2 guys either side of him forwards clean, but they don't do a good enough job, you have to recruit another guy then to resource that again, which means then your attacking shape goes 1 number less, which then can throw out all those attacking patterns and systems. So you're so dependent on that ball carrier winning the collision, and also how effective you are as the 2 cleaners in terms of the attack, because you can't afford now, so defensively heavily, you can't afford to lose any more than that in a breakdown. The only time you can do that is, of course, when it's on your terms and you're getting out your half, the caterpillar ruck, and when probably the ball's been kicked in behind you and you've got to resource it because it's sort of all hands on deck.
Yeah. So I say, it's you want the quickest ball as possible, so as defensively, if you can't actively steal the ball with your hands, because you've been beaten by the breakdown, as they say, you then sort of disrupt it that way. Obviously, we spoke about it recently, the movement to get a lot safer, because the breakdown once upon a time, I mean, if we go back, well, I feel old now, but 10, 15 years, when we first came in, we had a drill with a coach where basically he got nowadays, for good reason, you're not allowed to touch the head or neck of a player because they're very important parts of the body and so and so. But we were actively taught probably 10, 12 years ago that if you took the head, the body would follow. And this one coach, who will go unnamed, would get a sausage out, wouldn't he? A tackle sausage, lie that on the floor, basically get a member of the squad that he didn't particularly like, or someone under the age of 20, put on a suit.
He can afford to risk, basically.
Yeah, he can afford to risk, yeah. He said, put on this, get on basically the jackal stealing the ball position. So get your hands on the ball, get head over, and he would come in from a good 5-10 yards away, full well knowing he was the coach and this player could do nothing about it, and go, here's an example, guys. You take a run up from about 5 yards away, and you've got to get this, and he's like got his arm, his forearm, round here, and he'd literally round the neck, wouldn't he? And he'd run in, and he'd go whack, and literally whack this bloke in the. If he missed you and broke your nose, he'd be all right with it. But he'd then do that, and he'd like rip your head off, and then basically it was like the crocodile roll out. You'd flip over, and it'd be on your back, and you'd be like, great clear out. Obviously, you're 20 years old, and the head coach had just ripped your head off. You're a bit like, thanks. There's nothing I can do here. But then we'd do it, and it'd be like, right, yeah, get back over the ball. Everyone have a go at it, and you'd be like, oh god. And as players, you'd be like, I'm just going to run in here and just roll over. Like, you wouldn't obviously take their head off, but that was now. But if you did that now, you'd literally be suspended for weeks, wouldn't you?
You would. I mean, like, again, everything's geared around trying to make it safe, because it was, if someone was over the ball, like, you could essentially get them in a bit of a headlock and rotate them away from the breakdown and put them in all sorts.
And the big thing now as well is if the croc roll this year, for instance, we call it the crocodile roll, which is basically where you almost miss the clean and you put your arms from the side probably around the body and almost roll them, but you sort of throw your body into their lower limb, knees and stuff, which can create massive problems and injuries and stuff. That's been banned, so which is good.
It has been banned. Yeah, it's like when you end up, you don't get lower than the jackler as such, so then your chest almost ends up on top of their back, and you almost like sort of wrap your arms around them, and then you're trying to get them off it, but you can't because they're in a strong position. So what players tend to do, because of just the physics of it and the speed they're coming in, they sometimes then pull to the side, pull them down, as you say, Cole. Then these guys are in these jackal positions where their legs are well apart, and of course then it can be a huge amount of weight coming through on a knee either side, which is actually awful. But I tell you what, you do see some players where they get in a jackal position and they're cleaned out, and you think, oh, that looked mingy, and they just pop straight back up.
Yeah.
And like, they're phenomenal at it.
Oh yeah.
Like the flexibility.
Yeah. There's definitely that part of the game, isn't there, where people can sort of get over the ball, and you have to have certain bravery and thing. So I'm just thinking back to the same coach we were talking about there with the breakdown drill, and the time we were all forwards in the gym. I think we'd lost a game at the weekend, and I don't think our breakdown was the best, and he was really angry at the time. And he, again, got his sausage bag, and he came up to the gym, and he got a ball, and he's like, right, clear me out. So the first player, Mev Davis, was a hooker, wasn't very big, literally we're all looking at it like, this is a bit weird. The coach never done this drill before. And he went up to him and like nicely rolled him off the bag, and he's like, no, I want you to hit me. And he was like, right, yeah, go back there, go about 5 yards and hit me. He's like, so he did. And then it was like, right, next person. And everyone's like, a free shot of the head coach? Yes, please. Blokes are steaming in from 20 metres away, literally full on, shoulder him off the ball, kill him. And every time he got killed, he's like, oh, good. You came out the gym, literally bleeding nose, bleeding lips. He's like, yeah, fucking go ready now. You're like, all right, man.
Lads doing a quick gun and fly sets to warm up the shoulders, then coming off the back fence to clear him out. I also remember we're doing a rucking drill, and he decided to get involved. He had a passion for rucking. And this was when you could just about get away with like putting the odd stamp on players when I first started.
Again, we're going back year, but
this is like
rucking.
This is like 06.
Was basically glorified stamping. I think you could move someone out of the way with your boot, providing the movement was backwards.
Correct.
If you went down or forwards, that was stamping.
Yes.
But backwards was rucking.
Exactly.
And that was fine.
So the same coach has decided to get involved in this rucking drill. And one of the players is wearing those, those bodysuits where you strap your legs around and you have like an all-in-one suit, and it's like padded, like a big armour padded. This player's like half the group in that, and he's been pulled down and his back's facing. So he's decided to do the shoeing, but not forwards, but backwards. And he's like the Tasmanian devil, mate.
I think he was wearing rolls at the time as well. He was the coach. He's so angry with his drill.
He's like, tap dancing on top of his head. It obviously pops up, but due to him wearing this suit, obviously didn't feel a thing. Yeah. Coach is completely exhausted after literally tap dancing on his back for 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that was another thing, like rucking was basically if someone, like in the good old days of the game, again, probably 15, 20 years ago, is if someone laid on the wrong side of the breakdown, you would just stamp on them, and basically, or as long as it was backwards and you were over the top of them, it went. And I remember Sam Vesti once, who's now Northampton's a backs coach, great guy. He went from Leicester to Bath, and he played for Bath at Welford Road. And Geordie Murphy actually carried the ball, and Vesti made the tackle, and Vesti ended up on the wrong side. Geordie put the ball back, then grabbed hold of Vesti and held him in. And then the first bloke starts stamping on Vesti, and Vesti's like, guys, it's me. Literally, the entire pack ran in. But, like, the entire pack went in. Probably because we were told by Cockers to, like, get him. But literally, yeah, ran in. You'd shoo him. And then we got the penalty as well. That was the best thing. It was...
I tell you what, Geordie Murph was very good at the dark arts, mate. So he knew exactly what he was doing.
He was
there,
literally
hitting him in.
Yeah. Oh, just there's bits like that which you should remember in your game.
Do you reckon, when former players go like, bring back rucking? Because rucking was like the rucking that we were talking about, where it was genuine. Because the ruck back in the day, and I mean this is before we played, was 8 forwards running around, and wherever the ball, whoever got tackled. Like, it was a scrum every ruck. Yeah. Every ruck was a scrum, basically, where they just basically...
It was a push of the pile,
stampede over the ball. Yeah. And if you're on the wrong side, you basically just got kicked like a stampede.
Yeah.
And do you reckon some of them look at us now and think, oh, bring back rucking?
Well, part of me thinks it would stop players... You wouldn't... In those days and age, you'd have to be very brave to fall on the wrong side of the breakdown. So it had some... It self-policed itself in regards to... You're an idiot. You're really hard or an idiot to go on that side of the breakdown because you were going to get absolutely shooed. So, like, a lot of people just didn't. It kept it, 95% of the breakdowns were clean because no one would go on that side. So it's self-policed in that regard. But obviously, from a health and safety point of view, when you're on the wrong side and someone would boot you in the head, or especially exposed limbs like ankles were getting kicked, knees, elbows, that kind of stuff, and hands, it was, for a sort of for injury and for just the look of the game. The thuggery of the game, it sort of was better out the game than in. But
who was the Kiwi guy? Absolutely barbaric, and he got stamped on, and he basically got stamped in his scrotum.
He ripped his nuts, and then there wasn't allowed substitution either, so he had to get stitched on the side of the field. Yeah,
that is absolutely barbaric. And one of my favourite, John Mitchell, legend of a coach. And when we're having this beer up in Tokyo, which I think I've spoken about before, and we're chatting away, and he was talking about these stories, and he was saying about how one of the old games he played against Leicester, and he was at Sale, and Sale had got into a really decent lead, and he was like, "We're going to do them, like we're going to win this." And a little bit of a kerfuffle had sort of sorted out, and he said that Jono then walked over to Mitch, who was sort of on the floor, and he said he don't know what came over him, but he basically on the floor. Yeah, literally booed him in the nuts / belly button, right? And he reckons it was the worst thing ever. He said it sparked Leicester into life. Like, this huge brawl started, and then Leicester just completely came back in the game. They ended up drawing it, and they basically blamed Mitch for it because they were like, "Cheers, Mitch. You basically provoked them into like, spark them into life." But you could honestly do. I mean, it's thuggery really with your boots and your shoes, and
there was a period when it was, but obviously that cleaned up with the game with the TMO. And say rucking it went from basically just stamping on people to you could only do it backwards. Then it was like you could only really do it on the back or stomach, and then it basically just got outlawed because it was just dangerous.
Do you think, here's a question for you then, do you reckon what happens now if someone gave someone a bit of a shoeing, like around the back? Red card?
Yeah.
Is that what it is, straight red?
I'd say it's a red card, yeah.
It would be like completely frowned upon, wouldn't it?
Yeah. I mean, when I was 20, I used to come off field and like, you literally compare like flesh wounds in the changing rooms, even as a schoolboy rugby at the end of it, because literally your back and arms and stuff would be, like you'd have stud marks down you. But it was just like a thing of pride to have taken this shoe-in.
Which has also amazed me, the fact they still check our boots.
Yeah.
Because
but I guess that
there's no need.
Well, there is, because do you remember like there was a period when people were getting sliced open, weren't they, by like illegal studs? Which was basically more in the tackle and stuff, but that was those. So there is, but those studs never really got outlawed. So, like, but nowadays, say the breakdown is a lot safer place, but it's always the balance of trying to make it as competitive as possible, but making it as simplified as possible, so referees can see what's going on, and also trying to keep it as safe as possible in regards to, because obviously if you're in a position where you are stealing a ball, your head's probably a couple of inches off the ground. If I'm trying to clear you out, there's often not a lot of places to hit you, and that's where potentially I could hit you in the back of the head or something that's illegal. So the breakdown is they're trying to make it safer, which again, I think the law varies from world rugby in regards to, because there are some times when people jackal the ball, and as soon as they touch the ball, the referees, to stop the big collision, will go, yeah, that's a penalty. Whereas other times they go, you need to survive the clear out. So the game sometimes in itself, doesn't it, sort of varies between a hard competition at the breakdown, and you get boys on the ball for a couple of seconds, but then they get cleared out, and it's like, didn't survive the clear out. Or the other way around, where referees are kind of like trying to play, they focus on player safety. So it's like as soon as someone basically touches the ball, it's uncontested, or there's no one over the ball, that's a penalty, give them the ball.
Don't you feel though, like at times where, when someone's on the ball and they're pulling it, and they get smashed out the way, and the ref's like, play on, didn't survive the clear out. You're like, you fucking try and survive the clear out, mate.
Well, normally if there's time for you on the ball...
Yeah, you're right, I haven't survived it, you're right. But doesn't mean if he let go, I wouldn't have had the ball. But you try and survive that clean out.
Oh, well, that's the thing as well, because sometimes if there's time for you to get on the ball, it normally means the support players aren't nearby, which often means they've got a further run-up to get when you're over the ball to then...
And they're in panic mode.
Yeah, all momentum to clear you out. So that's when like those big collisions happen. And so I have seen it where some players are over a ball, it's kind of like 1,000, 2,000. They look up and it's like, oh no.
And the refs play on, didn't survive a clean out. You just see them pop up with their head like, refs, come on, sir, how long? And of course I bloody didn't survive it.
Yeah.
250 kilos hit me at once with 3 people. What about when the law came in, right? Can you remember this one? Where you could tackle and then reload in any area of the breakdown. Yep. So basically people would tackle, swing around, and then they'd actually be facing upfield, like the same direction as the attacking team, and be like trying to pull the ball and compete for it.
Well, that was a law, wasn't it? I think that was designed to simplify the breakdown again. But I remember that was basically, it happened, and then it turned out the breakdown just, loads of ball was stolen. It was just random. So then it sort of became where it almost, like sometimes in rugby, they try and shift away from it, but keep the law. And it became the point where you could only compete if there wasn't a breakdown. But then sometimes players would sort of clear the breakdown, but there'd be no defender there, so it wouldn't be technically a breakdown. And the player would just pop up behind them and steal the ball, and you're like, there's a breakdown. But it's like, well, it's not a breakdown because there's no one in that breakdown. But like the tackler's there, mate. And it was just a mess. And I think they basically ended up, again, for the safety of the game, well, not safety of the game, but for the rules of the game, got rid of that law. But that was, I think, designed to simplify the breakdown. But there's also another, do you remember one year we had the second man in a tackle, if a ball carrier hits the floor, the tackler, if it's 1 or 2 or 3, have to release the ball carrier. They have to get out of the way and show clear release. Whereas one year where basically if you didn't have to release. So if you were second man, say if we were tackling somebody, you went low, I went high and on the ball, I could throw that person to the floor and stay on the ball.
Yes.
And again, that was designed to simplify, I think, the breakdown because you didn't have to show clear release. So but then I just stayed on the ball. So every breakdown was just an absolute wrestle. And you never got anyone off the ball because they were so clamped on the ball before you even got there that it was like, and I think that rule they had to sort of get rid of because it was like, and that's when you got the sort of the hands away and people, so they call it the chicken wing or something daft, don't they? But like actually showing clear release before going on the ball. But
I'm pretty sure, if memory serves me right, like Hendrik Brousseau, Saf can flanker. I think that was sort of around his time because he was amazing on the ball, but he basically would just stand there, then grapple you, like mid-tackle, fall on top of you in a perfect jackal position, and no one could move him.
Yeah. But yeah, that was the but so yeah, there's been lots of sort of areas where the game's tried to improve, the breakdown hasn't, and it's sort of created another thing, and yeah, it can be a minefield. But I think the breakdown is the only thing area is the breakdown can be. I say it's tough on referees, and they obviously want a clear game. I think the game has improved recent years because, especially there's been a focus of, for instance, the tackler has to roll away because previously it was a very loose thing where the tackle would make a tackle and sort of keep hold of the ball carrier so he can place the ball for a second or two, which bought time for his defender to jackal the ball. Whereas now that jackal isn't rewarded if the tackle hasn't fully rolled away, which I think has cleared up the breakdown a lot.
To be fair, mate, you used to jackal a lot, and you're now more of a counter rucker, shall we say. Now, if I wanted to get over a ball, Coley, I would. All right, but my role isn't to do that. All right, I've said many times, defence coach, I'll get this barrel over the ball.
You're in a good position. You could anchor it down.
But no, I don't go anywhere near that stuff. To be fair, but how physical is it in that contact area?
It depends it can be really physical. Like there's times when it's more of a sort of wrestle because, like, say if it's close quarters and you're able to get on the ball, and as I said before previously, the jacklers the people cleaning the breakdown might have missed the clean, so it's not too bad. But there are other times, when you make a big hit, you try and get over the ball, and you've got people running in from 4 or 5 metres away, who are literally just intent on getting you off the ball, it is can be quite a unpleasant experience. Because obviously you've got two blokes who are literally have to go really low, almost go off their feet to get you off, and then forcing those collisions are big. So yeah, but I think the breakdown has, used to get them 5-10 years ago where it was a proper off your feet contest, whereas now I think the breakdown's a lot cleaner in regards to that and safer.
And that feeling of when you actually do get a jackal.
Well, it's one of those things. So sometimes the referee whistle blown, you think you've got a clean one and you get penalised. So you always have to check, or your teammates give you like a cheer, and then you work out what you've done. But yeah, there are a lot of times, especially like you'll be on your goal line and someone gets a jackal. There's almost like no better feeling than for 3 seconds. I don't really get them anymore, but like when your teammate gets one and you get to relieve that pressure and stuff. Yeah, it's such a tactic that across the game. I remember grand final we played Saracens. I think Rafael and Julio Montoya, Tommy Rafael and Julio Montoya, literally, they go into breakdowns and steal the ball. And you're honestly like, I don't know how you've done that.
No, it's incredible.
Like, I think there was one where Rafael, I think Billy V gets tackled, he's over the ball. I think Mara and a couple of others like clear him out, and somehow the ball's back our side, and you're like, I have no idea how you've had the strength to be on that ball. The bloke on the floor has also held onto the ball. You've been cleared out and taken the ball with you. And they're incredible. Like, you know what I mean? Like, when a good jackal, you are, even I, who've seen a lot, you're still like, I have no idea how he did that.
Some guys actually almost clamp on the ball and then wait for the attacking team to hit them.
Yeah.
And because they hit with such force momentum, and their hands are like scooped under the ball, that momentum actually
helps them rip it back.
Yeah. Rather than actually pull it. They almost like get in position, like brace, and it's like their momentum's going to hit me that hard that actually this ball will come back with me.
Yeah.
It's like basically self-sacrifice.
There was those as well where you're like, we've got the penalty there. It's like, no, you've won the ball. It's like, can I have the penalty, please? No, but you've got the ball. You don't need a penalty. It's like, give us the fucking penalty.
I think I got over the ball once in a Premiership game, and I was over it, and I thought, I've got this. Whistle went, arm out, pen. I thought, oh my God, I've got holding on pen. He'd done them for coming in the side. I was like, don't take that away from me, ref.
Yeah. But
just say it's holding on.
But yeah, it is not, because if there's a good jackler in the opposition team, or even in your own, you have to be so aware at the breakdown. A team that can jackal the ball, it changes the tactics and how you go about the game, because anything inside your own half. I think that's probably where the game has, with the breakdown, almost like kicking. Because if you think about the breakdown, it probably has a knock-on effect on how much you run the ball, because inside your own half, every time you carry the ball, there's an opportunity for the opposition to jackal it. And if you're getting penalised for in the side, or you can't, it's sometimes very hard to clear a jackler out within the terms of the rules, and the fact that you have to come through the gate. You're not allowed to touch limbs, you're not allowed to do this. So sometimes the risk reward is basically we kick the ball. You know what I mean? You don't play phase inside your own half, because the fear of them jackling it, either kicking to the corner or kicking post, is not worth the risk of just let's kick it down there into the field. So the breakdown in itself is a battle, but it also has a much wider influence on the game that probably you don't think about until you think of like what happens after the. You know what I mean? Like the reason you kick so much inside your own half is because you don't want to risk it the breakdown, getting jackaled or turned over. And if a team has loads of jacklers, you're literally like, we're not going to play rugby because we're so worried about, think about the great ones of like
Pocock.
Pocock. Who's the Australian? George Smith. I keep thinking Gregan. But you think like you play the great Australian teams like with Pocock and George Smith and people like that could just steal all. George Smith came to the Premiership in Waspeney for about a year, and it was like just either make him tackle you, but then he'll reload and steal it, or just don't go near him, and it changes the way you play the game.
It does, and that's where, again, like you say, Coley, test level, you have to be very disciplined coming out of your half, because to take it on and go through a number of phases, you're just inviting teams to jackal, go over the ball and win a quick, cheap 3, shot a goal and things like that. So that's why tactical kicking is so important, where you're prepared to take more phase count and everything like that as you obviously move up the field. Coley, we've got a question from John. Did Dan ever take any notice when people used to refer to him as the Ruck Inspector? That is so harsh,
John. I didn't take notice, but I fully accept that role. I did spend a long period, still do, of my time on the rugby field, just going to an attacking breakdown and being like, Ben, play away. It's fine. I'm just making sure it's safe for you to play away, mate.
Well, exactly. You got to protect me, mate.
Yeah.
Any
Exactly.
last minute counter rucks or anything like that.
There are sometimes, especially in your own half, where teams go hard at the ball. So you send 2 blokes in, but sometimes if you're kicking the ball away, you sometimes send a third or a fourth body in just to make sure that that ball is secured. And sometimes you get there and the ball is secured and you're like, what do I do now? But there's no point me going standing between the 9 and 10, is there? Like, so it's like, I'll just go like get in the way of the breakdown, so at least you're out the way of the passing channel. So that's where the Ruck Inspector, I'm happy with it. But it's smart play, John, actually.
Yeah, John. So, if you've got another question, send in a positive one.
And
that's
now,
a smart play from the Sheriff.
And now the Ruck Inspector's kind of gone, but the Caterpillar Ruck forms.
We should probably talk about the Caterpillar Ruck, right? Because when I first started playing, there was no Caterpillar Ruck or anything like that. Yeah. It was like you just had a ruck and you kick off that. You had 2 people in or 3 people at a max.
My first experience of the Caterpillar Ruck, I think, was like Saracens. And I'm pretty sure they brought it in, and they did. But it wasn't just a Caterpillar Ruck like we know today, which is normally about 4 people, 5 people. I'm pretty sure it was like 14 people in this Caterpillar Ruck, and the ruck was almost 10 metres long.
Mate, Saracens invented the Caterpillar Ruck. And they did. They had ball carrier, then you 2 people at the front of it.
Yeah.
And then I swear they used to have 3 or 4 on the back of that, this long ruck.
It was really long, which makes obviously the length of the ruck means the ball is further away from the offside line, which is where the defence stands, so they can't charge the ball, can't charge the 9's box kick it down, which is the whole point of the Caterpillar Ruck. The disadvantage of the Caterpillar Ruck is you then have, if you're the attack, you have 6 or 7 bodies back then in a very small part of the field. So if that ball isn't spot on, if that kick isn't spot on, if the attack goes pass, you've basically cut out the entire team who've been stood
forward pack.
The entire forward pack who've been stood in one part of the field. But then obviously the counter to that was, because there's nothing illegal about the Caterpillar Ruck in that regard, but it was slowing the game down, because at that point the referees couldn't call use it. So the 9 could take all day in some regards to get the ball back with his foot to the back of the breakdown and kick on his terms, and everything was organised. Nowadays, the counter, I think if that ball is at the breakdown, the referees can say use it, which gives you 5 seconds for you to kick the ball away or use the ball, isn't it?
Yeah. I'm glad they brought that in, because I've used the Caterpillar Ruck, of course. Every team does. Every 9's used it. I don't like it. I think it's it's a good platform to kick from. Yeah. But it's not like...
You say you don't like it, but you prefer it less getting charged down regularly.
Oh yeah, I prefer it less getting charged down. But I'm glad. What I mean is, I'm glad they've brought in that rule that you've got 5 seconds to use it, so that you can't take ages and set everyone up. But what happened was, Saracens brought that in, and then a lot of teams then started doing it. I thought, that's a good idea. Give you kicker more room, and then the evolvement of that is then we go, okay, who do we put in that ruck? So then suddenly you're putting front rowers in that ruck along with second rowers to make it longer. You're leaving your back rowers on their feet kick chase, because they tend to be the better athletes. And then it all became about, where do you set the ruck? And, you want to be on the 15 or in or nearer, and then you've got your numbers on the short side. So it's become so structured. It's almost treated like, once that ruck's set up, you've got the right people carrying, who's in it, and all that. It's become incredibly it's like a structured play.
Well, that's a part of the game I think that fans don't see, and often, you see the front 5 Ruck Inspect, but actually our job, the whole thing is set up, say if the opposition kick the ball to us, our winger carries, we'll try and get, say, the 6 and whoever's nearest, say, to clear that breakdown, and then the front row sometimes will carry the ball, but the front row carry the ball because you want, when we kick the ball, as you said before, we want the best people, the fastest people, which are the centres, back rowers on their feet to make that tackle, because that's going to be one of the hardest tackles in kick return, or you want to use the space. So actually, let's burn our front row at this breakdown, secure the ball, let's put our second rows in, because they're all so long, or they've got long legs so they can get the ball far away. We'll kick it, and then we have back rowers, centres, chase the ball, but then those front 5 can run forward, probably to where the breakdown is, and then take up the position at 1, 2, 3, guard, bodyguard positions around the breakdown. So the level of detail in regards to exits and that breakdown is actually, it's a lot more thought about than just, oh, you go flop on it, mate, because you're tired. It's actually, there's a detailed purpose of who's going where, and then what comes out of that in the next phase. And then also, if you have your tight 5, say, around the breakdown, you might have, if we're at Leicester, say, we might put George Martin into the 3rd position because he's a really good tackler, and you might put, say, like a Tommy Raffel 4th, because if we know they're going to carry that ball back to us, we've got someone that can belt it, and then we've got a jackler over the ball. So you almost start thinking 2, 3 phases ahead of what's going on. But it all starts at that breakdown, the kick return breakdown, which is, the caterpillar ruck and stuff like that. So, and then you've got to say the process of doing it in 5 seconds. So it's, you know what I mean? Like, it's sped up the game, but it's also the level of detail in that to get to the next phase, the next phase, the next phase, all comes from that original breakdown.
It does, huge amount of detail. And teams, and even, backfield, about who goes backfield, who stays. So, for instance, you can use, a lot of teams will use number 8, let's say, to use that first carry, or used to use number 8, to use that first carry. So he'd be on the floor, presenting the ball back, and then what you do is keep him in the backfield. So once you kick off that, the remaining, everyone chases it, but number 8, who's just carried it, gets back on his feet and just stays in the backfield. So that if a team are looking to kick back, if they get it wrong, they're kicking to their 8, one of your best carriers, to then launch your attack. So there's a lot of strategy that goes in.
Even before that caterpillar ruck, sometimes if the opposition is kicking the ball, you'll see the defence organise its people. So sometimes the tight 5 will be around that breakdown, so they can get to the first breakdown or first carry when on the kick return, and the centres will start moving out. So it's not just a hodgepodge of, we've got our fly half next to the breakdown and our tight on the wing. You actually see the adjustments in the defensive line then getting set for the counter attack ruck, for the structured. And I guess there'll be someone out there going, does that kill the game? But actually, that's not free flowing thinking rugby. But actually, part of it is to set you up to have free flowing rugby, and the fact that if you kick loosely to a winger or anything, they can run the ball back, or if there's opportunities to play. It's not like you've got the tight 5 in midfield. You've got your centres and your wingers there to play to if there is a holes to go to. So it's trying to set up people to be in the best positions to do their job, aren't they?
Yeah, and it's people wouldn't necessarily know that your majority of your ball and majority of what you're going to launch from in attack is going to come from kick return.
Yeah.
Like, it's not going to come from scrum and it's not going to come from line out. Like, you can combine scrum and line out together and it'll still be short on the amount of times that you're going to get a kick return chance to attack. So that's why I say, Coley, you'll see players swapping position in defensive line once the team's setting up to box kick and do the caterpillar ruck. People are moving in certain places because we know, okay, we can launch and we're trying to run a certain shape. If we get it in the right area, we can then launch from. So there's a huge amount of that. But I'm pleased there's a bit of a time now on the ruck. And I do think that the game will start to come away from, like, people are still going to box kick, absolutely. They're still going to have a caterpillar ruck. But I think the days of having box kick, I like to think are not going to be in the game as much as, as they maybe have previous years.
Well, I think teams look to counter it, don't they? It's the evolution of you getting that kicking duel and then you win or you don't, you get the ball back. But it's actually, how can we, if teams are expecting it and they've got the backfield set and everything's set up, how can you actually break that structure? And that sometimes might be, you don't actually wait for the breakdown to form and or the defensive line to get set. You can basically, the 9 kick on his own terms, you play to 10, kick cross fields. You just have variation in what you do and trying to make sure the defence has to think about what they're doing. And actually, if they're set, how can we, and the fullback's back and they've got the number 8 back, maybe we chip over the top or maybe we play to an edge and kick down the side so they're not, you know what I mean? It's that breaking up of what people are doing. I think that, as you say, it's got to probably, not say we've had peak box kick, but those kicking duels, teams are now looking not just to stay in them, but to actually win them. And that might mean playing to 10 or playing a variance or running the ball or, because everyone's breaked around the breakdown. If everyone's grouped around the breakdown, there's going to be space somewhere and it's about really finding that space and playing. So actually, once time, it's that the game constantly moves, doesn't it, in regards to, I've had an idea, how can we counter that idea? How can we counter the counter? And that's that ability of that, that's the game's next move probably is, how do you get away from box kicking and win kicking duels on your own terms?
So we blame Saracens for the caterpillar ruck.
Yep.
But equally now giving people a real insight that there's so much more that goes into it than just people just making a long line and us booting it.
Correct.
I want to get back to a bit of jackals.
Yep.
So let's name our top 3 jacklers of all time. And then I want our top 3 ruck destroyers of all time.
Right. That's going to be hard. There's plenty of great jacklers.
There's loads. I mean, it is very, very hard, but we don't mind putting ourselves out there as a.
You don't.
Okay. Do you want me to go first then?
Yeah.
Right. Just all 3?
We don't have an order, yeah. Unless you want an order. Do you want an order?
No, I can't. I'm just going to put them.
Okay. You throw out 3 names.
Right. David Pocock.
Yeah.
Incredible. And he was sort of taller if he laid on his side because he was so broad.
Yeah.
Like, he was absolute big old unit. So he's in there.
Big biceps. Yeah.
Big biceps. George Smith has to be in there.
Yep.
Phenomenal. And you got to put Richie McCaw in there because he was Well, he was just phenomenal. Again, like he was the type of guy. Well, they're all amazing, but for me, Pocock, not in no order, but David Pocock, George Smith, Richie McCaw. There's my three, and there could be so many others as well.
Yeah, no, I've always got a soft spot for Dustatois.
Oh yeah,
Partly because he'd get over a ball and he would get hit so hard, and you're like, he's definitely like lost his knees in that collision or something like that, and the ball would just come back, and his flexibility was incredible. I had someone like Justin Tipprich I'd put in there because he would spoil many a breakdown for us playing against him. But yeah, there's a lot of, let's say, Pocock, Smith, you can't really look past them. McCaw, there's quite a few in there.
It's so hard because even when you think like,
So
you know, McCaw and Smith, but actually if you go like even like right now, like you think like Julien Marchand, the hooker, France, unbelievable. Malcolm Marks, like unbelievable over a ball.
Yeah.
Then you're thinking as well, like you've got the Irish back rowers as well with Doris. He's pretty decent over a ball.
Yeah. Yeah, you got loads. And I say, even like sort of, you go to like South Africa and you look at, say, Visa and Vermeulen and people like that. It's just they're so big and strong.
Marco van Stranen.
Yeah. Van Stranen, yeah. And they get over a ball, they're impossible to move.
You can't. Well, they're so strong, you can't move them.
Yeah.
And then like Savir, then you've got.
Savir's up there in regards to basically.
I was just thinking that
somehow there are balls when he gets them and shouldn't. And the ability, his timing of like, his ability to pick the ball up as well. Like there's times when you see him steal it and he's almost like goes through the breakdown and picks it up, and somehow you're like, I have no idea how you've been able to do that.
Basically, what I've established after just having this brief discussion is that to name a three was near non impossible.
Yeah, because I'm not saying the world's best, but even like our mate Marla is like, there are blokes like him that once they get over the ball, they've got such like broad backs and stuff. It's like you cannot move them. A, you can't get your arms around, and two, Crocodile roll them, and B, they're just anchored in.
It's like Stephen Kitsoff.
Courtney Laws. Courtney Laws. How many did he get the World Cup? He was getting 2 or 3 a game.
Yeah.
Right.
Bottia.
Yeah.
How have I forgotten about Bottia?
Yeah.
I retract. Well, I don't retract it, but it's just impossible. I can't do it.
Yeah.
Right, but let's say, right, now we're going to pick our ruck destroyers, though. I'm going for mass. I need weight. So I'm going to go with Backy's Botha as one.
Yeah.
Off the back fence.
I did actually, when researching this podcast, I did look at sort of clear outs, and there's quite a few where Backy's Botha just headbutts the opposition off the ball. Illegal at the time, apparently. But yeah, he was.
He's my ruck destroyer.
Yeah, he's a big man. Yeah. I'm
going to go with. I want more mass. I just want guys just destroying.
See, I'd go with the hardest right shoulder in rugby and being Brad Thorne.
Brad Thorne.
Yeah.
Yes, we actually had the pleasure of playing with Brad.
Yeah.
And he could. I mean, you know, like when you go temping bowling.
Yeah.
And the ball gets whipped down there and just skittles them. He'd hit breakdowns and sort of 2 or 3 jacklers would be skittled out of the way.
It wasn't just like one breakdown. It would be like bang, bang, every other breakdown or every next breakdown he'd be belting and skittling and getting back to his feet. And his work rate was incredible. The fact that he was like low, and that's what you look at like breakdown. Like the Kiwis are definitely.
Well, they're phenomenal. The height they play at and their ability
you watch the Kiwis, not the Irish and teams like that. The technical, like maybe someone's not the biggest, but their ability to get low and power through breakdowns is incredible. So that's 2 blokes. Who's your third?
So I've got Brad Thorne, Backies. Who do we want as third?
Who do you want, mate?
I can't think of a third one because there's so many that we could name because people are phenomenal at it. Like, you know, to clear people out is a hell of a skill.
Yeah.
But all I'm saying is if I'm playing 9 and I had Brad Thorne and Backy's Botha clearing out that jackal, I'm pretty sure I'm getting 1 second ball.
Yeah, well, you're probably getting no one compete either. For fear of being absolutely poleaxed at a breakdown.
Do you know what you're getting? You're getting the old jackler go in and then seeing them and then pulling away.
Yeah.
So those guys come in and face plant and then they get penalised for going off their feet. Yeah. And the jackler's like, yep, thank you.
Smart decision I made.
It is a smart decision. Coley, the only thing we haven't covered probably is back end of the game.
Yes.
You know when like there's only a few rucks left and you can't get done for sealing off.
There's a minute left in the game.
There's a minute left of the game.
You don't want to kick the ball back to the opposition for fear of them
not.
running it back, getting possession and scoring. But then you don't want to play there's always the fear of that point in the game is you try and you want to keep it tight because you don't want the opposition jackling the ball. But then also, we haven't really spoke about it, but the attacking clearers going off their feet. There's always a chance that they go off their feet or seal the ball, which basically, you don't allow a contest at the breakdown. So you play at the end of the game, the referee will say use it, and you'll use your 5 seconds for as long as possible. And then, yes, you'll often play short and carry into like an arrowhead of players, which, again, I'm not saying it's a lottery, but you've got to be so precise in what you're doing because sometimes the referees are looking at the attacking team not sealing off because obviously it's quite, I'm not saying it's negative play, but you just basically try and see out the game. So, and then secondly, you have cobras and jacklers and people who are trying to steal the ball off you, or even counter-rucking, making decisions. So that breakdown can become a fight. But then the thing with it defensively is like you want to almost make it as quick as possible in regards to if we can get a shot on the ball, take it. But if we can't, leave it because then they'll have to use it and we get another shot in 5 seconds time. If we counter-ruck it and put bodies in and make it real slow and make it a 10-second breakdown, that's 10 seconds off the clock. So in some regards, you want to be as quick and that's sometimes when defensively you'll stick your best jackler almost behind the defensive line and you will, however, you always try to make a dominant hit, but sometimes you'll try and make a passive hit, go low and wrap the sort of attacker up and let him fall your side, and then your 7 gets straight on the ball, and hopefully your other defenders might conveniently slow down their clearers to give you a shot on the ball to steal it. Yeah,
there's a bit of, like, as you say, like you'll see teams that will put their jackler just behind the line there because they just need one shot of the ball, and like they either go off the line and chop them and try and get there, or you say, Coley, is they almost look like they're going to fly off the line and get you, and they don't. They almost invite you to run at you, so they have to engage and almost pull you down quickly. And then the defence can sort of just about get in the way of the attacking team, just to give that guy a second to get in the ball. I think if you're attacking point of view and you're trying to see out a game, I'm just trying to get as close as I can to a touchline. So if I do get jackled, my team does get turned over, jackled, or we do give away a penalty, it's like as close to that touchline as possible. So that the kick, if they're going to go for touch, it's a hard kick to get to touch. Equally, if they're going for the post, it's a much difficult shot at goal. The last thing you want to be doing is like trying to close out a game and sitting in the middle of the pitch. Otherwise, that is not ideal.
No.
So safe to say, it's changed a lot, Colin, because when we first started out, you could actually afford to see out the game and hold it for ages. I remember a game in particular, it was the European Cup final, and Munster played Toulouse, and it was in Cardiff, and Munster basically held onto the ball for like 2-3 minutes, sealing off everything. And then it obviously got changed and everything like that. So anything longer than over a minute, like you're probably not holding onto the ball. You're probably better off going territory versus like holding on to anything like a minute less. Like you back yourself to hold on, but
it depends where on the field you are as well.
Of course,
if you're inside your own 22, you're probably
you're going off.
Yeah, or kicking it as long as possible, or off the field. Midfield, you're probably going to go. If it's opposition half, you can zigzag all you want and take time out of the game. Midfield, you run the risk of, if you're in your own half or if you're 50 metres and it's kickable. It depends where you're on the scoreboard as well. If you're 2 points, you're probably going, actually, let's just maybe kick you down there in the field. Whereas if you're got a 4-5 point buffer, then the opposition have to kick for the corner or roll the dice a bit to win it. You have to try to win. You're 50 metres out, you're probably going there. We can take the risk of just picking and going for the next couple of minutes and see the time out.
So we've got a question from Ed, and it says, what does a ruck sound like?
Probably sounds like, sir,
shot mate.
Sir. Something along that lines.
I mean, sometimes you do actually, like sometimes you hear the thud.
Yeah.
And you hear like almost the wind leave the chap who's over the ball.
Yeah. But sometimes, it depends on, say, the breakdown. But there's often, like, when you're getting belted, sometimes in the rib or whatever it is, or rolled out of the way, there's some appealing goes on in there. Basically, if you think you're on the ball and you get cleared out and you feel unjust, or it might be like, oh, he's in the side, or so there's sometimes appealing, but a lot of the time it's basically you are just, if you're attacking, it's like if you're, say, squatting in the gym and you get to the top of the squat and you sort of go, like a lot of people, not grunt or whatever it is, but because it's probably not the right, but an explosive movement. Like sometimes when you're clearing out, you'll get this guy's grunting because it's an explosive movement to actually move a body out the way. You know what I mean? It's not just like you're running like, it's like you're actually hitting people out the way and forcefully doing it. So there's a lot of grunt, not say a lot of grunting, but there'll be some form of grunting or exertion, sound of like wind leaving, or air leaving the lungs and that. But yeah, repeatedly for 100 times a game.
Well, because you're trying to generate as much power in such a short distance as possible. And also the breakdown's forever moving. So like, the jackal's in one position, then he suddenly just ever so moves. So when people...
Well, that's another thing we haven't really spoke about, but sometimes teams are getting... you see the sort of an evolution of the catch tackle is sometimes teams will try and hold a player up, and then your cleaners will come in and hit that, say, person, the defender, off the ball, but then the defender might try and throw the attacker to the floor, to the left or right, out the way of his cleaners, and then that gives a shot for his fellow defender to jackal the ball, and the cleaners are sort of left. Because the hardest position, I think, to clean, it's not if you're directly behind a breakdown, but it's if you're alongside a breakdown. Because then if you have to come back round your own side to come through the gate, it's so slow as defending just go straight on the ball. So, or you come in the side and get penalised. So a lot of times defending as well now is, so the thing you've seen in the past couple of years is teams almost like a second man wrestling for the ball up top, and then throwing the attacker, wrestling the ball up top and then throwing the attacker to one side away from the guys who's cleaning out.
Yeah, and also in attack point of view, like you say, Coley, is everyone has to be an option now, and you're so busy running your lines outside the ball carrier that ball carrier then doesn't give you the ball, he carries it. You're then met with the defender who might give you a little bit of a nudge, knowing full well that nudge is the difference between you getting there to clean out the guy that's competing from the inside or not. So there's a lot of things that happen. Like most things are explainable around the breakdown of why that jackal was able to get in there and how he's able to steal it.
Yeah, that was the episode. I'd like to thank you, Ben, and thanks to all the jacklers or clear outers or people that make the rules so we can discuss this.
Yeah, thank you.
But yeah, if any listeners have got any other areas of the game they'd like a guide to, then please get in touch.
So yeah, hopefully you've enjoyed our guide to the breakdown.